Hello, good evening, and welcome to Stratford Circus. It's little more than a Bob Beamon long jump away from the site of the 2012 Games in Stratford in the capital's East End. Faster, higher, stronger, the Olympic motto. No mention there of pricier. And the cost of the Games is just one of the concerns that has dogged the project since the heady day in July 2005, when London won the right to stage the Games for the first time since 1948. Joining us a panel made up of those charged with delivering the Games. Olympics Minister Tessa Jowell, who's overseen the project from the outset. London's Mayor Ken Livingstone, who's pledged that the Games will only cost Londoners 38 pence a week, the price of a walnut whip. Double Olympic gold medalist Sebastian, who is tasked with staging the greatest show on earth. And Conservative MP Hugh Robertson, the Shadow Minister for Sport and the Olympics. And last but not least, an audience of Londoners with strong views on the Games. They're just itching to give our panel a firm but fair grilling. So without further ado, let's get the first question. It comes from Neil Ewings from Wimbledon. Neil, your question to the panel.
The Mayor of London and the government have agreed a funding levy for the Games of 38 pence on council tax. Can you guarantee that this will be honoured and Londoners will not have to pay out more given the escalating costs of the project?
Ken Livingstone, can you give the people of London a guarantee?
Absolutely, and I mean, no one believed us when I said it would not go up, but we're now in our second year at 38p, it'll be 38p next year. I think I've said it before. I would resign from office rather than break that pledge. As long as I'm mayor, it will not cost more than the 38 pence a week.
What happens if there's cost overruns?
Well, that's what we've set aside. I mean, Gordon Brown, who's very cautious, has set aside £2.5 billion, which is much, much more than we will ever need. Tessa Jowell and myself have drawn up all the memorandums of understanding. But the thing to remember about this is this. After the Games, we sell the land. We look at that, it's about £2 billion. No one believes me now, but I do think we'll end up making a profit out of these Games.
What happens if land prices have collapsed?
Well, if land prices have collapsed, it'd be interesting because they've been going up consistently all my life. They've gone up by about 20% a year, each year, for the last 20 years. Now, you might get a temporary blip, in which case you put off selling them until the land value's picked up again. I doubt if there's anyone in this room thinks there'll be a long-term decline in house prices, and the same is going to be true for commercial land.
Tessa Jowell, can you give the people of London a guarantee that this latest budget you've come out with, 9.3 billion, is the absolute outer limit of what we'll spend?
Well, the National Audit Office, which is charged with overseeing the proper value for money allocation of public expenditure, says that they believe that this budget is robust and puts the whole Olympic project on a sound footing.
So is that a yes?
Well, I expect the Games to be funded within the 9.3 billion that I announced in the middle of...
I understand you expect that, but can you give the people here tonight a guarantee that the budget will not go above 9.3 billion?
I can't give a guarantee, nor can anybody here, nor could any member of the audience, because we're talking about an Olympic Games that will open in 5 years' time.
You told us in 2005 that the cost of the Games would be 2.4 billion, and you said that was prudent.
No,
now it's 9.3 billion, so why should we believe you?
What I said in 2005 was that the public sector provision for building the Olympic Park would be 2.375 billion, and where that would come from.
Sebastian, you're responsible for the running of the Games once all the facilities have been built. That's going to cost 2 billion, and you say it's all going to be covered by revenues. Are you sure?
It is covered by the private sector. We don't take a penny from National Lottery, we don't take a penny from taxes.
What, you've had 2 billion from the private sector?
Absolutely. It comes in 3 tranches. It's our negotiations with the International Olympic Committee, their top sponsors, television revenues, then our ability to bring, as we have already.
So have you got this is money in the bank?
Some of the business partners. No, it's money raised over that period, but this is a scalable project. If we don't reach 2 billion, we don't have quite as many fireworks in the opening ceremony.
Yeah, but part of the 2 billion is 600 million in merchandising. You haven't got that in your back pocket.
No, it would be unlikely to have it at this stage because we can't actually have merchandising until after
So this is yet another punt.
Beijing Olympic Games. No, it's based on some very serious work. We have some extraordinarily talented commercial teams. We've brought Lloyd's TSB to the table. We've brought EDF Energy. We will have 9 of our Tier 1 sponsors in place before Beijing. We have 45 business partners to bring to the table. There are 9.5 million tickets to sell. There's merchandising, there's licensing, there is all sorts of ways of raising
No, we know
this
what
money.
there is. We just wonder whether you can make the 2. Have you ever made 2 billion before?
No, have you?
Okay. Actually, I have. Hugh, Robertson, if the Tories were in power by the time of the Olympics in 2012, it's not entirely inconceivable, particularly if you're a dreamer, would you, and the budget was way over 9 billion and rising, what would you do?
Well, in the end, there's no option, Andrew, is there? Because we have undertaken to stage the Olympic Games, and if the budget is way over, well, we'll have to find some way of paying for it, because that is an immovable deadline. And on the 27th of July 2012, the Olympic Games have to open. So it's as simple as that. Though to be honest about it, I think what is immensely heartening about the new budget is that there is such a large amount of contingency built into it.
We need to move on. Next question. Neil Wolfson is here from Harrow.
That's right, yeah. This is for Tessa and for Ken. Do you think that people living in Hillingdon should be paying the Olympic council tax levy when people living in Chigwell in Essex, which is much closer to Stratford, they're exempt? For instance, my 92-year-old grandfather in Ruislip is paying the council tax levy, but realistically, he's not going to see any benefit from these games.
Ken Livingstone, is it fair that someone living in Uxbridge should be paying your council levy, but someone in Chigwell in Essex, which is just around the corner from the games, doesn't?
Well, I'd love to be able to tax all the areas around London, but I can't do that.
Yeah, especially
Later
Essex, I
this year,
expect.
we will announce the building of a new tube line from Heathrow through Hillingdon, right the way through central London. People in East London will pay for that. People in North and South London who aren't on that line. Earlier this week, the government announced £5 billion of extra investment in overland rail across London. Now, a lot of people don't use overland rail, they use the tube. You can't always just get back what you put in, it's the totality of what you put into a city. And the one big thing is people in Hillingdon will get a chance, if they're poorly housed, to get some of the affordable housing, because it's not just for people in Stratford. Okay. The affordable housing after the Olympics Games goes is for all Londoners.
Let me just make a broader point and just pick up on something that Ken said. Of course, people pay tax for all sorts of things in a city. I was chairman of the Sports Council back in the mid-80s. I have to tell you that London has consistently underperformed when it has come to sporting facilities. We have the big occasions, we have the Wimbledons. We have fallen way, way behind. What we are going to leave Londoners over the next 20 years are facilities that are not just comparable with other capital cities in the world, but are actually only bringing them up to where Sheffield, Manchester, Leeds and other cities were 20 or 30 years ago.
Okay. Yes, the gentleman up there in the blue shirt.
Tony Sese, what is this question for everyone? Quite quickly, for the Olympics, staging these Olympics here and building these Olympic Games, are there going to be preference to our community and working on these games? Because, you know, living in this area,
that is a very, very important point.
I'm a community man.
Okay,
and
we get the point, Sebastian.
Let me just make the point very quickly. If 50% of the organisational teams are working on making sure these games work functionally at games time, the other 50% spend every waking hour worrying about what it is that we're going to do with these facilities afterwards. They, of course, have to be returned to the community. You cannot
Will the swimming pool be open for recreational purposes?
Yes.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely it will.
That's
and
a pledge?
And that is the...
Won't just be for Olympic swimmers?
No, absolutely. They will.
Okay.
We want to leave facilities that are capable of staging elite level events, but also facilities that locals are not simply
that's a pledge on the record. Gentlemen, there.
One of the key issues is what jobs are being created, and is there a term or a clause within any of the 9 contracts which have just lately been let that stipulates 10% minimum must go to local people unemployed in London?
Well, if it was 10%, I think that was a failure. The first of the contracts, which was to underground the power lines, something like, I think about a third of people lived locally. Yes. And We can't specify you've got by law to have this or that number of people, but we're working with all the contractors and we're working with the local councils and the colleges to really increase construction courses in the area. There are... Pardon?
How many jobs at the moment?
I mean, there are very few jobs at the moment because we're actually clearing the site. But when we start building the stadium, building the aquatic centre, and then there's all these ancillary jobs that will go with it. We've got 70,000 people who volunteer, but those volunteers will get training in speaking a language, in providing services, which will help them get jobs before and after the games.
How many will be local people who live in this area?
I would have thought I mean, if you talk about the East End of London, my target is to try and make sure about a quarter to a third of the people come from sufficiently close. And that makes sense. You want people to be able to get a bus there, not have to schlep all the way over from Poland.
All right, let me ask you, Minister, a question about security. In your original budget, you only had about £100 million. You now put it up to £600 million for security for these games. And yet, Richard Bryan, the Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, he says this Olympic board, when it comes to security, quote, is not fit for purpose.
I gather that the Met have actually refuted that. But let me deal with the point that you make.
Did you lean on
because
them?
the budget... No. The budget, the original budget, you're quite right, there was a figure of about 200 million. But the day after we won the Olympics, as everybody here will remember, London was attacked by terrorists, and therefore the security of major events like the Games assumed an altogether different proportion. The security plan is currently being developed both by the Met and the Home Office. It will be published later this year, early next year. But obviously, in a 5-year period, the costs of security will be kept under very close review in order to ensure that the Games can be delivered.
All right,
in a way
but let me
which
ask, is
safe.
it true that because of the lack of trained firearms officers in this country, that armed police from abroad will be on our streets?
This is a wonderful story. But the reality is we would not want people who have not been trained in our laws and our method of working to come over. We may very well get a lot of police from the rest of the country. There may even be some police coming over from other countries to assist, but they will not be strutting around Stratford with guns on their holsters.
Will they be armed?
There will be our armed police, and that is what we want to try and contain it to.
But we've only got 2,600 trained armed policemen
and
but women.
If you actually look at what happened a couple of weeks ago in London, we had 2 million people in London turn up to the Tour de France. We had the big Live Earth concert, and we also had Wimbledon going, all on the same day. What everyone said was that the security was there, it was not obtrusive. We do not want an Olympic Games held with a lot of gun-totting, machine gun police wandering around. It wants to be a very light touch.
Sure.
We'll use the security.
I understand that,
are
but
needed in a small
just be
number of areas.
absolutely clear here. You will say categorically, and the Minister will back you up, that there will be no armed foreign policemen in this country.
That is my intention.
I mean, that's not what I asked.
No, but at the end of the day, there may very well be small groups of people providing diplomatic
Tessa Jowell,
protection and so on, but
buck
not
stops
on
with
our
you.
street.
Can you give our audience, our viewers, a commitment tonight that in the hosting of these games, there will be no armed foreign police?
I hope I can give you that assurance. However...
Well, it's either yes or no.
No, but however, the responsibility for the policing of the Games will sit with the Metropolitan Police. They have to and will be satisfied with all the arrangements and the deployment of personnel. But there's a more general point.
But excuse me, Minister, it is not just up to the Metropolitan Police to determine this issue. It is up to the elected government of this country to decide whether it will have foreign armed police on our streets. What is the government's policy?
Absolutely. As things stand now, there is no part of the security plan that I am aware of that has been discussed with me.
Sounds a bit like your 2.4 billion original budget.
That is not fair. I don't want to mislead anybody, and what I'm saying is the position as it is now. There is absolutely no plan to have foreign armed police.
All right, it's on the record. We will see. We need to move
Before
on.
you accuse me of being a liar in a few years' time,
I'm not accusing you of anything, I'm just asking questions, Mayor. I'm sorry, we have to... Look, you've answered it.
If the President of the United States of America comes to the Olympic Games, they will bring their own... And that may be the situation. But what we will not have on our streets is foreign police forces bearing guns.
All right, we'll see what happens in practice. Move on to the next question. Tim Lamb, who's the Chief Executive for the Central Council for Physical Recreation. Tim, your question.
Thank you, Andrew. My question is for Tessa. Tessa, the governing bodies of sport whom CCPR represents are totally behind the 2012 Games, but we are greatly concerned about the money being diverted away from grassroots and community sport in order to pay for Olympic facilities. Is there no way that the issue of the cannibalisation of lottery funds can't be looked at again?
Minister.
Well, the answer, the short answer is no. The budget is set and the commitment from the lottery also agreed. There are two points worth just remembering, that there has been a six-fold increase in spending on community sport over the last 10 years. Our legacy ambition, and this is the plan that you know because you're involved in helping us to develop it, the legacy intention is that the UK will be a great sporting nation, not just in terms of the achievements of our elite gold medal winners, but in terms of school sport, how much children play, their opportunity to compete, and how well they do, but also increasing the numbers of people who take part in sport. And for the last 3 years, we've had an aim every year that 1% more people each year would actually take part in sport.
So why did your own Cabinet Office and the Department of Culture, Media and Sport say in a report, hosting major events is not an effective method of achieving sustained increase in sport participation? It's your own department.
Well, and that was a report of some 5 years ago.
So what changed?
If you do nothing to promote participation, then that is almost certainly the case. But here we are, from 7 years out, as soon as we won the Games, there was increased investment, focus and momentum on boosting participation. And we're setting a target that no other country has ever sustained of increasing participation.
But you're cutting money for participation in sport at the moment. You've cut 90 million from Sport England's lottery money. Where does the participation increase with that?
Money for sport, as everybody here knows, comes from many other sources, thank goodness, apart from just the lottery. It comes from the Exchequer, it comes from the private sector, it comes from local authorities.
Sebastian, what do you say? How will we get more participation in sport when you're taking money away from the grassroots organisations?
Well, I will say something that probably isn't hugely popular, but actually the greatest driver of participation is not funding participation alone. It is actually having a well-stocked shop window, it's having the role models, it's having the Tanny Gray Thompsons and the rowers and the Daley Thompsons that come through. And there is no better opportunity than to drive that over the next 5 years and having our national governing bodies focused on creating those pockets of excellence that an Olympic Games will produce.
Understand. Hugh, Robertson, are the Conservatives supporting this cannibalising of the lottery?
Mesa, we're very clear about what we said we'll do. The lottery was set up in the mid-90s to fund sport, the arts, heritage and charities. It's been widened enormously. That has caused the drop in funding that Tim has itemised. We're very clear. We'll put it back to those 4 original pillars. That will give us the money to drive the increase in participation that CCPR and many other people want to
Alex
see.
Lucas, who's here in the front row. You're a boxer, is that right?
Yeah.
You were in Singapore when we won the Games.
Yeah, along with Amy.
Yeah? Tell us how it is. You're training hard.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question as it is. What will you be doing to help me over the next 5 years?
Oh, I think you have to help yourself. But you're happy. The facilities you've got are good.
Yeah, I'm happy with my training.
Your training?
I'm happy with the support I'm getting, yeah.
Yeah? So you're going to get a medal?
Yeah, gold one.
That's what we like to hear. Right, let's take another question. This one is from Delwar Hussain. Delwar, your question.
We've already heard about local people and jobs. I want to ask about local people and the decision-making process. Is enough being done to ensure that local people are part of the organising of the Games at all levels?
Are you asking that question because you think there isn't?
Well, we held a conference a few weeks ago.
We being?
The Dainford Trust, which is a local charity, and we heard one testimony after another where people felt completely removed and not part of this process.
All right. Mayor,
Well, we're about to announce in the autumn a whole structure that will involve the local boroughs and local communities, because, I mean, the local communities aren't going to decide which particular sports take place, but the real issue is the legacy. And the legacy won't work if the local boroughs and local people aren't signed up for it. And so this will become a huge enterprise. There'll be the key players, I mean, all the borough councils, myself, Seb and Tessa and others, all driving this forward so that we're being completely all the way listening mode. How are we to manage them afterwards? I mean, we want to make certain that, yes, you get your elite athletes there because they're good role models. Okay. We want to make sure local schools will use hockey pitches and the aquatics and all of that. We also, it's the start of the whole of the regeneration of the rest of the Lower Lee Valley. All in all, 40,000 homes and 50,000 jobs. And we can't do that without having local people with us. So I have the horrible feeling in 2 or 3 years' time, you're saying, we're being consulted to death. Well, go away, get on with it.
Where will the 50,000 jobs come from? Which I see is no longer a promise, but a name.
Oh, no, this is new. I mean, the reason I wanted to bid for the Olympics, because no government would ever find the billions to do up the Lower Lee Valley. It was always going to be polluted, backward part of the country.
But explain to our audience where, having staging the Olympics, after everyone's taken their tent down and gone home, polished their medals, where will the 50,000 jobs come from?
They will come in the land we sell for inward investors to come and open and right the way across
we're back
London.
to the land.
Yes. Because
you've now got a vested interest in property inflation.
And you know as well as I do, this year, London has overtaken New York as the prime and largest financial centre.
I think I told you that.
We're building on that, and there'll be a whole range of good, high-paying, high-skilled jobs coming.
All right, let's see what the audience think. Gentlemen in the stripes.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the plan to sell off the land, because one of the things East London really needs is lots of open space and access, particularly children and young people. They need a legacy. They don't get the vote. How are you going to ensure
that's a very good point, but I want to get, rather than put to the panel, we've had a lot from them, some more points from our audience. Yes.
Seb, we've got 5 years to go. Do you think you've got still a massive selling job to do to the British public for the Games?
Well, after tonight, he'll certainly be saying yes. I'll answer for him. What's your point?
And the legacy...
am I able to answer that question?
Yeah, you will, but I want to hear from the audience as well.
Okay.
The legacy of the Olympics in other countries hasn't been that great. A lot of stadiums have been built and not used. What can you do to guarantee, or say to guarantee, that there will be a lasting legacy? Especially looking at what's happened in Sydney, in Atlanta and places like that.
All right, Seb, the floor is yours.
Well, actually, Sydney and Barcelona are two very good examples. Barcelona in particular, I went to Barcelona a few weeks ago. They're still creating jobs off the back of the Games that took place 14 years ago, and in very sustainable ways. The point you make, though, is a very, very important point. And it's actually one that Tessa Jowell made earlier. Legacy is not going to fall into our laps, because in 2012, we hope that the warm words we used in Singapore will be enough. Legacy will work only beyond 2012 if we plan for it now. And that is why, for instance, the master planning for the Games enshrines for the very first time not just the functionality of the Games and what the facilities look like, but also what we do with them afterwards, who the anchor tenants are, where the ongoing income streams, the revenue streams are, who is going to use them, both hard and soft legacy. And that is why this is a very different Games.
I want to know, I'm sorry. You've had your chance too. I want to squeeze in another question, one more question, see if we can get one in. This is from Malcolm Beckett from Ilford. Malcolm, your question.
Okay, in view of the Commons Public Accounts Committee's criticisms, how will the Olympic Village be used after 2012? Might it be used as council housing, or possibly sold into the private sector?
All right.
Quite simple.
Yeah.
Half of it will be sold as market housing, 35% will be rented. I mean, most likely run by housing associations, and the other 15% will be those schemes where you buy part and rent part. So, like all the rest of the housing that we now want to see built in London, half affordable for local people, the other half on the market.
All right. Minister, can I ask about the big stadium? Can I ask about this major stadium that we're building, the major stadium that's going up? Will it have a roof over it?
The design's being worked on, and certainly there will be a roof over at least part of the stadium, but it has to meet, first of all, what we told the IOC we would construct.
Well, you've seen the rain recently, haven't you?
Indeed.
So should we not have a roof?
That's right. You should have heard my discussions with the Treasury about a roof and the rain.
But I thought you'd fixed the price and the cost, and that 9.3 billion was the absolute
and
maximum.
Today we've
and you don't even know if there's a roof.
Yeah, and we now have a memorandum of understanding between the Delivery Authority and McAlpines to go forward to the next stage of delivering the stadium. But it also has to meet all the technical specification and so forth.
Right.
But the legacy use of the stadium is also very important, and I take very seriously the points that have been made by the members of the audience who live in East London, who will be served, we're determined, by the legacy use of the stadium.
Let's get some points more from in the final moments. Let's hear from our audience again. The gentleman here.
My question is to Lord Cole and the Mayor. The last thing I remember about the Olympics before coming here tonight is actually the furore about the logo. Do you have any program in place to give positive news about the Games, although it's 5 years away?
Oh, well, I think we'll let that one hang on we'll think about the cost of the logo and let it hang there. The gentleman here.
I find this debate very, very frustrating. Tessa Jowell and Sebastian did a miracle. They got London to get the Olympic Games. At the moment, we have to have them, and we're going to have them, but London is a mess. Ken Livingstone, if he took the Northern Line, could spend 3 hours reading a book. Our transport is a mess. Our airport is a mess. We've got the threat of terrorism. What on earth in the next 5 years or in the next 6 months are we going to do about it?
Ken Livingstone.
In the first place, we're spending £10 billion already committed to improving transport. That means upgrading the Northern Line so it carries 20% more passengers in about 18% less time. The government earlier this week set aside another £5 billion for overland trains. We've expanded police. There were 25,000 police when I was elected. We've got 35,000 today. We can cope with those things.
All right, lady here in black.
Once the Games is finished, will you allow the travellers to move back to their site that's going to be turned into a car park?
We will allow them to move to a site on in the valley.
Gentleman alongside her, here at the front.
You're building this Olympics setup in a floodplain. How are you going to protect it from the potential of rains like this?
At least it'll be all right for the swimming.
Don't forget, that site is protected by the Thames Barrier, which at least is safe for another 50 years. May be safe right the way through.
All right. Down the Lee?
Yeah, what we're doing is the areas which could be dealt with by water coming down the lower Lee. One of the reasons we've had to move the allotments there is we're building up the banking to provide protection for all of that.
All right, gentleman at the back.
There was previous mention about encouraging people to take up sports. It's not just a question of getting those who have no family history of doing sport to get them to play sport, but the other thing is the 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds who are all leaving active sport because of pressures such as GCSEs, travel to school, and then at 16 they all want to get a job and the peer pressure for that. So all the sports clubs are losing active participants.
You made an important point there. Minister, I'll give you the final word. Convince our audience this is all going to work and be a good thing. Never mind the logo.
This is going to be the greatest thing that ever has happened in this country and in this city. That's why the government got behind the bid, to regenerate one of the poorest parts of London, to create a lasting legacy, young generation of young people taking part in sport, excelling as never before, and a national festival that will stay with us for the rest of our lives.
Oh, there you have it. That's all we've got time for. My thanks to the panel and to our audience here in London's East End. And thanks to you, above all, for watching. Good night.
Thank you.